The safest financial decision you can make might be the one that slowly makes you poorer. Imagine building your entire life around stability. You choose predictability over uncertainty. You work a steady job. You save consistently. You avoid anything that can drop in value. No market swings, no volatility, no stress. From the outside, it looks responsible. It feels disciplined. It even feels intelligent, because nothing ever seems to go wrong. But something is going wrong, just not in a way you can see. Years pass, then decades, and without any dramatic loss, without any visible collapse, a quiet divergence begins to form. Your account balance grows, the numbers go up, but what those numbers can actually do in the real world begins to shrink. The house costs more, energy costs more, food costs more. Life itself moves faster than your money. Nothing crashes, nothing breaks, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. We often confuse the absence of volatility with the presence of safety, but in a system that is constantly moving, constantly expanding, and constantly inflating, staying still is not neutral. Stillness is a position, and over time, it becomes a losing one. This is what we can call the stability trap. It's not a sudden fall. It's not a bad decision. It's a slow, almost invisible misalignment between how safe you feel and what is actually happening underneath. Your perception of risk stays fixed, but the environment doesn't. Prices rise, systems evolve, opportunities compound elsewhere, and while you feel protected, you are quietly being left behind. The trap works because it feels right. It aligns with something deep inside us, a desire to protect, to hold on, to avoid loss at all costs. And that instinct isn't irrational, it's ancient, it's biological. Human beings are wired to avoid pain more than they seek gain. Losing $1,000 hurts more than gaining $1,000 feels good. And that imbalance shapes nearly every financial decision we make. So we choose what feels safe. We choose stability. We choose environments where the numbers don't go down, where the graph is smooth, where nothing unexpected happens. But safety in this context comes with a hidden cost. Because while you're avoiding visible losses, you're accepting invisible ones. You open your account. The number is slightly higher than last year. That feels like progress. It gives you reassurance. It gives you a sense of control. But that number exists inside a system that is constantly changing. And if that number grows slower than the system itself, then in real terms, you are moving backward. Your money is increasing, but your purchasing power is declining. And that's where the math begins to matter. If your savings grow at 2% per year, but the cost of living rises at 4%, you are effectively losing 2% every single year. Not through a crash, not through a bad investment, but through the quiet mechanics of the system itself. It's a loss that doesn't feel like a loss, because nothing is being taken away. It just becomes harder to reach the same outcomes, the same lifestyle, the same level of comfort. The gap widens slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day the distance is too large to ignore. And by then, it didn't feel like a series of bad decisions. It felt like doing everything right. This is the hidden structure of the stability trap. It replaces the uncertainty of short-term volatility with the certainty of long-term decline. It trades visible risk for invisible erosion, and it does so in a way that feels completely rational while it's happening, because at no point does it trigger alarm. There's no panic, no red numbers, no urgent signal telling you something is wrong. And without that signal, there's no reason to question the path. But the system doesn't need your awareness to operate. It doesn't need your permission to change. It moves regardless, expands regardless, reprices everything around you regardless. And if your strategy is built on staying still, then over time, the system moves past you. The deeper issue is not just inflation. It's not just purchasing power. It's structure. Because when you avoid all forms of variability, you also remove your exposure to growth. Safe financial instruments are designed to be predictable. They protect against immediate loss, but they also cap your upside. Your returns are limited, fixed, linear. No matter what happens in the broader economy, your position doesn't meaningfully change. But the world doesn't operate in straight lines. Growth, especially in modern economies, is uneven. It's exponential in certain areas. Technology scales, businesses expand, entire industries emerge and multiply in value. And the individuals who are exposed to these systems don't grow linearly, they grow geometrically. That difference compounds. Over long periods of time, small differences in growth rates don't stay small. They separate outcomes entirely. Two people can start in the same position, with the same income, in the same environment. One chooses stability. The other accepts calculated exposure to growth. At first, there's no difference. Then a small one. Then a noticeable gap. And eventually, two completely different financial realities. Not because one worked harder, but because one participated in the system differently. And this is where the concept of convexity begins to matter. Some decisions, some assets, some positions in the economy have limited downside but uncapped upside. They respond disproportionately to positive change. They benefit from volatility instead of being harmed by it. They are positioned in a way where uncertainty creates opportunity. But when you avoid all uncertainty, you remove yourself from those environments entirely. You protect yourself from short-term fluctuations, but you also disconnect from long-term expansion. And the asymmetry is critical, because in a system that is constantly growing, the majority of value is created on the upside. The downside is often bounded, temporary, recoverable. But the upside, when accessed correctly, is open-ended. So when you eliminate exposure to that upside, you are not just reducing risk, you are redefining your ceiling. You are setting a limit on how far your financial life can expand. And over time, that limit becomes permanent. That ceiling doesn't feel like a ceiling at first. It feels like stability. It feels like control. It feels like you've removed uncertainty from your life. But what you've really done is remove participation from the parts of the system that actually create change. Because the modern economy doesn't reward stillness. It rewards contribution to growth. It rewards those who allocate capital into things that expand, scale, and evolve. And that creates a quiet but powerful dynamic beneath the surface. The people who choose safety provide the fuel. The people who accept uncertainty become the engine. When you place your money into low-yield, highly stable environments, that capital doesn't just sit there. It gets used, deployed, leveraged into projects, companies, and systems that aim for higher returns. The financial institutions holding your capital are not avoiding risk. They are managing it, pricing it, using it to generate growth elsewhere. So while you are standing still, your capital is moving, just not for you. This is one of the least visible dynamics in the system. The conservative saver believes they are stepping away from risk, but in reality, they are outsourcing it. They accept minimal returns in exchange for certainty, while others take that same capital and expose it to environments where growth is possible. And over time, that difference compounds into a structural divide. It's not just about returns, it's about positioning. Because once you understand this, the definition of security begins to change. It's no longer about how stable your account looks today. It's about whether you are connected to the systems that will define tomorrow. True security is not the absence of movement, it's alignment with the direction of movement. And that shift is where most people struggle. Because moving away from a preservation mindset requires something deeper than knowledge. It requires a change in identity. Instead of asking, how do I protect what I have? The question becomes, how do I position myself within a system that is constantly changing? Instead of avoiding all fluctuations, you begin to understand them, measure them, expect them. You stop treating volatility as a threat and start recognizing it as part of the environment. Markets move, economies expand and contract, prices adjust. None of this is abnormal. None of this is personal. It's simply the behavior of a complex system operating over time. And when you begin to see it that way, the emotional response starts to shift. A market downturn is no longer a signal to retreat completely. It becomes information, a data point, a moment that may require adjustment but not abandonment. You stop reacting to short-term movement as if it defines your long-term outcome, because it doesn't. What defines your outcome is whether you are positioned to benefit from the long-term trajectory of the system itself. And that trajectory, historically, has not been flat. It has been volatile, uneven, sometimes chaotic, but over long periods, it has expanded. Productivity increases, technology improves, entire sectors emerge that didn't exist before. Value is created in ways that are impossible to predict in detail, but almost certain to occur in aggregate. And that's the environment you are operating inside. So the goal is not to eliminate uncertainty. That's impossible. The goal is to navigate it, to participate in it in a way that is measured, intentional, and aligned with long-term growth. This is not about reckless speculation. It's not about chasing trends or taking blind risks. It's about understanding that every position carries risk, including the one that feels safest. Because the most dangerous risk is the one you don't perceive, the one that doesn't trigger fear, the one that doesn't show up as a loss, the one that slowly reshapes your reality without ever demanding your attention. That's the risk of standing still in a system that doesn't. And once you see that clearly, the traditional categories of safe and risky begin to break down. Cash can be risky. Stability can be risky. Avoidance can be risky. And volatility, when understood and managed, can be part of a strategy that actually protects you over the long term. Because protection is not about freezing your position in time, it's about ensuring that your position can adapt as time moves forward. It's about maintaining relevance inside a system that is constantly evolving. And that requires a different kind of thinking, a different relationship with uncertainty, a willingness to accept that short-term discomfort may be the cost of long-term alignment, not because risk is desirable, but because it is unavoidable. So the question is no longer whether you will face risk. The question is which form of risk you are choosing, the visible kind that fluctuates in front of you, or the invisible kind that compounds behind you. One feels uncomfortable, the other feels safe. But only one gives you a chance to move forward with the system instead of slowly falling behind it. And in the end, the goal was never just to feel secure. It was to actually be secure. And those are not always the same thing.